this idea of the Stockdale paradox is really holding two strong beliefs at once. It is having unwavering faith that you're going to make it, but it's also facing the brutal reality of today. And as that relates to hospitality is understanding that guest no longer exists. That was pre-pandemic. And it is really taking a look at your value proposition. Who is your guest today? And how can you meet them differently?
Thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name is Andrew, and if this is your first time tuning in, this show is all about hospitality. People that work in restaurants and bars, servers, bartenders. I've been in that world for the last 20 years, and I've done everything you can, made pretty much every mistake, and now I'm looking for people who've done it and done it well to try to share their stories, tricks, tactics with the world. On that note, today we have Kim Haasarud, former USBG, that's the United States Bartenders Guild, president, founder of Liquid Architecture, author of the 101 series, so 101 martinis, 101 margaritas, and unbelievably so much more. Me and Kim got to know each other when she was involved with Arizona Cocktail Week. I used to go out there in my youth and help them put on the show, batching cocktails in the past, and also competing in their competition, Last Slinger Standing. So we get to talk about all things USBG, what it takes to succeed in a competition, what to think about the state of hospitality post-COVID, and so much more. So thank you for listening, and without any further ado, this is Serves You Right. Thanks for joining us today on Serves You Right.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So I thought a little bit about how to introduce you, but I thought the best way might be to ask how you would introduce yourself. So let's say we're at a party, a cocktail party, and we're serving 101 cocktails, of course, and someone comes up to you and says, "What do you do?" What do you say back to them?
You know, it's kind of depends on the context we're in, but like at a party, I would say that, I've worked in beverage innovation for like the past 20 years and have been a mixologist and have worked like on national accounts and hotels. But I think I kind of sit at the intersection of being like a futurist and really being able to have perspective and seeing kind of the future of hospitality. And so that's kind of segued into like creativity and writing and so forth.
Okay. Yeah. So you are someone who sees the trends, predicts them, and helps create them, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. Can help other hospitality entities, whether it's in beverage, restaurants, or bars, incorporate some of those trends or really kind of react. So a futurist isn't necessarily someone that can predict the future. It's saying, hey, here are some trends that are happening. Here are some ways to navigate it and prepare yourself for several different outcomes.
I got it. Yeah. Because you're not necessarily predicting the future, but you're saying, hey, the line is going in this direction. If it continues, do this maybe, or that sort of thing.
Yes. Here are some things that can happen. So it's not the sky is falling. Here's the things that you need to do, but here's the things that you need to prepare for.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the sky is falling, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that.
Yes. The Stockholm Syndrome and all the things you've written about. So I know you from Arizona, and I don't think that you started there. So can you kind of walk us through your history and how you ended up there?
So I have worked in hospitality pretty much since graduating high school. It's never really something I thought I would do as a career. I really wanted to initially work in the entertainment industry. So I had an opportunity to move to New York when I was 19, and I did. And discovered really quickly that I actually like behind the scenes and production versus front of the camera. And I did that for a little bit, but during that I went to Fordham University. So I was going to school, worked in entertainment, and also bartended to help supplement my income. And I loved
you're pretty
bartending.
Bored most of the time. Didn't have a lot to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I bartended and I really loved it. And I worked for some great hospitality groups and I worked for some terrible ones. And I think New York City is a great place to learn a great work ethic and learn how to do things and how not to do things. So I was there for about 10 years. And, it's an interesting beast, hospitality. I have a distinction of working in Times Square double shifts on New Year's Eve.
Oh my God.
So
I can only imagine.
Yeah, so you can't imagine. So being, I understand what it's like to be 10 people deep, having to go in the walk-in and cry yourself out of it and pull yourself back up and like go hit it again.
You've got 20 seconds.
That's
yes.
not
yeah.
It's not a sustainable way to want to have a career. So we've evolved a lot from that. But yeah, it could be pretty rough. But so in working in the entertainment industry, I got to go to the Sundance Film Festival and Toronto Film Festival and was exposed and some movie premieres, and was always really blown away at how much money and resources were put towards the food and the decor and the lighting, everything. But the drinks were always an afterthought. And I had worked for a couple of hospitality groups that allowed me to be like really creative behind the bar, and you could see what a difference that would make when you used fresh ingredients or when you really engaged with someone and knew about cocktails. And this was at a time when mixology was just starting to get popular, like in the late 90s. And going to these events, I knew that, gosh, if you just put a little bit of creativity, a little more effort into the drinks, of which every single person was holding some kind of a drink, you could really enhance someone's experience tenfold. So that was really the genesis.
Yeah. Literally just swap out sweet and sour with fresh squeeze. Like,
yes,
the smallest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Small things. So that was the genesis of me creating this consultancy, was really putting a lot more effort and focus on mixology. And so it was really event-based. So with my connections, I did some movie premieres, and I would hire an art director, and we would, for the Batman premiere, would make the bar look like a bat cave. And we had some really great cocktails there that were well-balanced and fresh ingredients. And it also made the sponsors look really good because they were just used to just dropping off product to sponsor something. But in being able to create something a little more unique and special, it drew a lot of attention. And so that was kind of how my consultancy started.
Okay. And so that
from
was
there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you go first. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so from there, I had moved to Los Angeles, and so lived there for 10 years and built it, and got more into working with national accounts. Eventually, I got on the radar more liquor brands and started working with them directly, started working with hotel groups and national restaurant chains and helping them with menu engineering, LTOs. Spent a lot of my career doing that. Eventually was there in LA for 10 years, moved to Arizona. I've been here for about 12 years. We moved to Arizona because my husband's parents live here. It was still close to a national airport. We wanted to, we were having kids, wanted to settle down. Los Angeles is extremely expensive. It's hard to save. So Arizona was kind of a great in between.
Sure. It is so funny how your story mirrors so many people we've talked to here. Yeah, I think you are maybe the 10th person who at the beginning of their career was like, I'm going to do something in acting. Go to either the East Coast or the West Coast, and then realize, well, I'm trying to go to all these auditions, or maybe I'm working on this set, but what I'm doing consistently is hospitality, and I'm doing pretty well there. It's like, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a there.
Yeah.
Was this liquid architecture through the whole time?
Liquid architecture was all through my experience in Los Angeles. So that's when I started it, when I first moved to Los Angeles. So during that time period, and all through Arizona. Although now I'm kind of segueing into kind of doing some more like strategy work. And so there is a little shift that's just kind of happened in the past year, which is exciting. Yeah. So it's more strategy work versus like actual cocktail development.
Yes. I mean, cocktails are fun, and it's fun to get to create them. It's fun to do that all the time. But I mean, I'm saying this to you. There's only so many variations you can do of a cocktail before it's like, okay, again. I'm saying that to the person who wrote the 101 books too.
No, you're exactly right. And I think, one really key distinction as a consultant is it is a creative job, but it is not an expression of your creativity. And when I'm writing the books, that is an expression of my creativity and my approach. But when you are a consultant, you're kind of getting paid for that creativity, which is it's a little harder. So you're not necessarily creating, drinks for yourself. You're creating drinks for somebody else. So, when you're recreating the margarita for the 789th time, that's, it gets harder.
Well, I think that's also a cool idea too, because I think a lot of people looking from the outside in would just look at the drink creation, but I'm sure that it doesn't stop there, because there's also, can we reliably reproduce these drinks and say, if it's a hotel chain, all the different outlets at the hotel? Like, will we be able to source this product? Is this a product that'll actually make us money, or are we going to lose money on, like, there's a lot more to it than just the fun of making a drink. Which,
it has to be, operations has to be hand in hand with that. It is not just the creative. It has to be feasible, and it has to be feasible for that particular outlet. What works for one restaurant's not going to work for another one. So even when I have gone into talking with a restaurant group or chain, that's usually my first question is, let's dive into your operations, because I need to understand the sandbox that we're playing in,
Mm-hmm.
And I see it happen all the time, where these consultants, they've had this amazing award-winning bar, and then they go into like, well, I'm gonna just kind of repeat that, and can't repeat that on a large scale. And you have to be able to, take a slice of humble pie and say, here's the little sandbox, and here are the little tools in this sandbox. This is what you have to work with. Create something amazing, which can be a really fun challenge. If you understand those guardrails, you could be like, all right, what can we make in this sandbox? But that can be.
This is not the concept to do pickled watermelon in. We're going to go sample that sort of thing. I did want to touch on the books, because I was curious. One, how the books came about, and two, I wanted to discuss with you the content, because I have a feel from looking through them, and the martini one in particular I looked through earlier, and it seems like, there's kind of a snobbery that can exist in the bar world about, like, these drinks are classic, and like, kind of looking down on the sweeter drinks. So you're like, but I like that you'd embrace the fact that, yes, martini is a cocktail, but in common parlance, a lot of people call anything in a martini glass a martini. Yeah. And so, like, why fight it? Let's embrace it, So, do you mind digging into the books a little? Sure.
So the books came about. I had actually written a book proposal for an entirely different book in like the early 2000s. I wanted to do, and what became popular are those, coffee table books with like beautiful photographs. I wrote a proposal for a book called Dessert Martinis. And I wanted it to be these like really over-the-top, elaborate tiramisu martinis, s'mores martinis,
Make the Cheesecake Factory very jealous.
Yes. I wanted to do these really over-the-top, beautiful dessert martinis that when you went through it just looked like, really juicy photography. So anyway, I wrote this book proposal, and I pitched it out to a few different publishers and agents for about 6 months, and got, quite a lot of rejections. But I heard back from one agent who said, so I'm not interested in the book that you want to write. However, I am looking for an author to take on a project that I'm working with a publisher called John Wiley Sons, which was a huge publisher at the time. And they already have a deal with like the Crate and Barrels of the world, and they are looking for an author to write 101 series. So we're going to start with 3. So 101 margaritas, 101 martinis. Would this be a book that you'd be interested in writing? And I was like, yes. So I took on the project, and then 2 books turned to 8 like over the next 10 years. Yeah. Which was really exciting.
Like you said, yes, that's 303 cocktails. Like, yeah. I think you dedicated to your husband, right? You said the best cocktail taster or something like that.
Yeah. So my husband is, he is the ultimate taster. And I really got inspiration from the book, because I would go to the farmers markets. I would go to the produce markets, grocery store throughout the year, just find whatever was in season and fresh, and build a margarita around that, or build a martini around that. And so that's kind of how, because I think anybody could do it once you have, you understand the formula. And so my husband he was he'd be in the shower, and I'd be like, hey, open the door. Hey, try this. Is it good? Is it balanced?
It's kind of a dessert margarita, but just give it a shot. See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, when I get really excited about something, I need answers right away. I need feedback, and so no matter what he was doing, where he was doing, so and often sometimes he was in the shower. But
are there
so he
any
was a
drinks? Oh, sorry. Yeah, are there any drinks from that period that you were like, think this would work, but just didn't end up like it? Just finally you thought about it and like this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there were quite a few of those. Where I would even go to the Asian market, and I really didn't know what exactly I was doing or what a lot of those ingredients were. So it was just a lot of experimentation. I think if I were to do that book again today, I would know how to incorporate those a little bit more, understand how to use umami and salts better in a cocktail. So there were a lot of things early on I was just kind of throwing, and just trying to see, does this work? Does this not work? But yeah, I think now I've just gotten a little smarter about how to use ingredients. But to your point about the definition of a margarita or the definition of a martini and how that's expanded, I do think the martini has become it's been defined by the glassware that, you can put anything, I have most of the drinks I would say in that book wouldn't be considered a classic martini, although I do pay homage to a lot of the classics and I do have those in there too. But yeah, and the margarita too. I think if you're using, I think I defined it as if you're using lime juice and you're using tequila, you can add a lot of other things in it to be a margarita. But
yeah. No, and I mean, flavor-wise, your typical consumer, and I mean, even me, just like if I'm on vacation in like Mexico and I have like a pomegranate margarita, if it has tequila and it has lime juice, who knows what else is in there, but I'm like, okay, this is a margarita. Yeah. That is the nice thing about tequila. It's so distinctive that a lot of things could add that moniker, and it's like, okay, it tastes like tequila. It's margarita land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really, it drives me crazy when mixologists get so rigid about how they define it, because the reality is mainstream America doesn't care. And as much as you try to like put that stake in the ground, well, this is not a margarita, this is not a martini, we need to separate those, it's not going to happen. And so you need to, at some point, embrace what people want, embrace what people recognize,
Yeah. I mean, Tito's and soda pays my bills, so like, you drink what you like. That's awesome. How did you get involved with the USBG?
So the USBG, throughout my career, this started about 2005. I got involved with the USBG in Los Angeles. So the United States Bartenders Guild, it's interesting that in and of itself has gone through a really big evolution, just like cocktail and mixology have. So this is an institution that's been around for about 75 years, a little more like 77 years now. But it is kind of the governing body of bartenders. And it started in Southern California. And it was part of a larger bartender organization called the IBA, International Bartenders Association. And so it was used to kind of establish some practices and networking group. They competed globally, which was a big part of that. Laura Olivia wrote a great book if you want to understand kind of some of the cocktails that came out of those competitions and some of the leaders that were behind that. It's a really great book called The Liquid Legacy. So if you're interested in that history, but it has evolved, and it had a few chapters, but not many, like over the course of the 75 years. And I would say really starting in the early 2000s, when mixology started to happen, there was starting to be some growth. Bobby Gleason and Toby Anningham started a chapter in Las Vegas. And then there was a chapter in San Francisco as well. David Nepov started, but it really exploded. So I was involved early on, and it grew like 5,000%. Like in a very short amount of time, with, went from just a few chapters to close to 40 chapters, and grew from maybe a few hundred members to close to, at its peak, was I think almost 8,000 members. And being in a leadership role and kind of through that process over the years, there's been a lot of growing pains, and in a good way. We learned a lot. But so the USBG now is it's an organization. It's great. They have chapters all over the country there, and it's kind of moved what it used to be about the professionalism of the bartender and wanting to define that, but that's actually grown and expanded. Now it's about that, but it is also about community. It's about establishing community through education, through connection, through all of that. So I think, and advocacy. Advocacy is a new recent strategy that the Bartenders Guild has taken on to advocate in states and nationally for rights. So, which I think is a great strategy.
No, that is great. A lot of people that work hospitality don't have a voice in that sort of thing. So you kind of need a champion. And
yes,
transparently, I'm asking you about this because I am helping to get the Omaha chapter going again. So there used to be a Lincoln and Omaha USBG chapter before I moved here, and apparently it disbanded. I don't really know why. I think it was lack of interest. And so I'm trying to get people excited again. I found one other leader to throw his name into the hat. So I just need one more to start I've got a lot of people that are interested, not a lot of people that want to be leadership. I'm sure you're smiling. You're like, yeah. So what is it like to be a leader in a chapter? I know you've done more than that, but...
Yeah. It's an interesting question because I think we went through this time period where, and we still see it today too, where leaders, they want kind of the glory. They want to be in charge. They want to see it's more performative, and it's not. Leadership really requires someone being able to organize a community, being able to capitalize on the group's strengths and be able to mentorship people up and be able to take them on that journey with you and want to see them lead. Unfortunately, I think there have been a lot of leaders that really just want the attention and I think that's been a real hardship within the organization because we had leaders that were just really about themselves and self-promotion, and even the way our elections used to be where it was more about the most popular kids. We had to make a lot of changes to make sure that we got the right leaders in place. So I think now you wanting to start a chapter and you were finding people that just really want to see the community grow, I think that's the place that you need to come from. So leadership needs to come from a place that is not about yourself. It's about the community and about others and about really wanting to see the community grow. So
sure.
I think we're at a great place.
No, that's great. And, I very much do not want the power. I want to get it started. I want someone else to take it over. I'm like, I just remember it was so useful and so much fun in New Mexico. It was great. And I learned a lot. And because I was around a city that had a USBG chapter when I was kind of in my formative years, and it did a lot for me. And even introducing me to people like at Natalie and going to Arizona Cocktail Week, a lot of that stuff, that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that sort of thing, that community. So
yes, yeah, it opens doors for you. It's networking, and you never know what direction your career may take. And I think now more than ever, there's a lot of opportunities in beverage. When I first started bartending, that was never really a career that I thought of as viable. It was a means to an end. And I think now bartending and beverage has grown that you could go into sales with a distributor. You can go be a brand ambassador. You can go into innovation. You can go into management. I know you've taken an interesting path too with wine and being a sommelier, and that's a great growth path as well.
Yeah. Well, I noticed early on that I may not be the most personable or the most naturally gregarious behind the bar, but I could excel through knowledge. And I just kind of found the one area that had the most intricate knowledge, and I was like, I'll throw all my passion into wine. And so it worked. But yeah, there are a lot of outlets, and there are not a lot of super old bartenders. So it's one of those things that, once you get good, you can do it for a large part of your life if you take care of your body and if you are careful. But I don't know. I can still move kegs, but I don't know if I want to every day, it does add up, and it kind of all the dings and all the hours on your feet. You're like, I don't know if I can do this for 100 more years. But
It's hard. It is really hard. It's not for the weak. It's for sure. And I think that's why I think it's so important for leaders to be able to show other opportunities in beverage as well. Whether it's going into management or consulting or sales. I mean, there are lots of different careers options out there. There are some people that stay bartending and they love it, and that is awesome. That's great. I think it could be a viable career path as well. I mean, you look at someone like Jeffrey Morgenthaler, who has been a bartender for, close to 30 years, loving it. And he's had a lot of other opportunities of writing books and speaking, and
he's done all those things. He did just come out with an app though. So who knows?
Yes.
Maybe it's his exit. Maybe we're seeing it in real time. You never know.
Yes.
But good old Jeffrey. Yeah. He's a funny guy.
What I really like about Jeffrey too, and I really see him as a strong leader in our community, is that he gives away things for almost for free. I mean, even these apps we're talking about, it's like $5, and it is such an incredibly useful tool. And on his blogs and websites, just the amount of information that he freely gives because he wants to help people. I mean, that's the sign of a great leader.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This will be fast, I promise. Please take a moment and leave a comment on the show. It really would mean the world to me. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what we're doing well and what we could improve on. I'd love to hear from you all. All right, back at it. Exactly, yeah. No, I aspire to be that. And again, I hope I have no glory, and I hope I give the leadership reins away, because I currently have -2 hours in every day. So I don't need to add more on, but it is what it is. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about where hospitality is and where it's going. So I thought we could touch on, where do you see the world of hospitality right now?
We're in a really tricky spot. I recently wrote this essay on my Substack called The Stockdale Paradox of the Bar Industry. I was having lunch with a friend of mine she's a publicist for a lot of different restaurants locally. We were just kind of talking about the state of the hospitality, and she was shaking her head, and she's like, I have so many clients that are still waiting for, like, when is it going to get back to like pre-pandemic numbers? And we were both just so taken aback that there is still this attitude in many hospitality operators that are just kind of waiting for it to get back to pre-pandemic numbers. And I think in some ways that sometimes we have a toxic positivity problem. Like, hey, things are going to get better. Things are cyclical. Bars are never going to go away. They are, the foundation of American hospitality. And there is some truth to that. I don't think bars are ever going to go away. Mm-hmm. But if you are waiting for your guest to come back and you're still providing that same experience, then you're waiting for a guest that no longer exists. I think this essay that I wrote, the Stockdale Paradox, was coined by a man named Jim Collins. He's a researcher. He wrote this book called Good to Great, and he named it after Admiral Jim Stockton. And he was a prisoner of war in Hanoi, Vietnam, and he was for 8 years. I mean, the conditions that he was put under were extreme.
Horrific.
And when were horrific. And when he got out, he was asked, how was it you were able to survive? Who didn't survive? And he said, well, that's easy. It was the optimists. And not because optimism is a bad thing, but because, it was the optimists who were like, hey, we're going to get out. Hey, keep it up. We're going to get out in May. Everybody have a great attitude. We got this. We're going to get out in May. And then when May came around, they didn't get out, and so forth. And they just lost faith. So this idea of the Stockdale Paradox is really holding two strong beliefs at once. It is having unwavering faith that you're going to make it, but it's also facing the brutal reality of today. And as that relates to hospitality, is understanding that guest no longer exists. That was pre-pandemic. And it is really taking a look at your value proposition. Who is your guest today? And how can you meet them differently? So it's really taking a hard look at that reality and making the appropriate changes. During, the last decade, corporate America, when you would see bars is when you got off work, that's where you would go, and I think now this idea of even where people are going and how they're spending their money and time has really evolved. So I think it's really important for for operators to really take a hard look at their value proposition and how they're meeting people.
Yeah. I guess to kind of expose kind of my own bias, I earlier referred to it as the Stockholm article instead of the Stockdales. Yeah. When you said it, I was like, I misspoke there. That's funny. A good one. Maybe a little truth in that too.
Yeah.
A lot of, I think it was another article you wrote that kind of split hospitality now, like the middle is dying and you have the low end and the high end, and it kind of seems like the same thing, kind of the trajectory that maybe people are going to have to go into. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah, I think you can read a lot of articles on LinkedIn and they talk about the K economy. You're either doing really well or you're not doing well at all, and I think the economy is the number one, hands down, across all industries, is the number one the reason behind food and beverage decisions. So your guest that was there 5 years ago may be in a different place financially than they are now. The way that I see a lot of successful operators navigating this is if they can offer, people who are doing really well and reaching that guest. So perhaps you're a bar, maybe you want to offer exclusive experiences. People have a lot more options nowadays. So offering, expensive or exclusive experiences that are really unique and bespoke are great, are awesome. But then there's the other end where you really need to be value driven. You really need to understand. So I see the rise of the neighborhood bar, the rise of the dive bar. There's a place here in Phoenix called Sidewinder. James Beard honored chef, and is a total dive bar, but it is meeting people where they need, where they want. So having, Frito, Cheeto, the Frito pie in the bag with really great simple cocktails that are $5, $6, $7, and a great little meal for $8. Awesome. So I really see that rise and the exclusivity. But if you're kind of in the middle, but people are trading up or they're trading down. So, you even have a concept like Chili's that maybe once you used to go to the expensive restaurants, but now you're going to Chili's. But man, have they leaned into their value proposition. I mean, they have been up 20%. 20% for that kind of a chain is not a blip. I mean, that is a huge indicator of what's happening in the market. So I think it's just something that people need to pay attention to. Just really understand their value proposition and what they're offering.
I also like how you kind of pointed out there's an opportunity for you to kind of present these different layers yourself, where perhaps you have an a la carte menu that's a little more affordable, and then you have the mid dining, and then the chef's table is at $8,000 or something like that for a party of 12, and so that everyone, you're meeting them where they are, but all in one spot kind of thing. There's a lot of options if you're creative in this economy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great ways to be creative. There was even one spot that, during the day they are a cafe, and during the night is when they offer their more exclusive offerings. So there's a lot of different things that you could be doing within the menu itself, or even kind of throughout the day to meet these different demographics. Yeah,
and then the bitter and twisted with preferred seating and the club sort of thing. I thought that was cool. Yeah. And even here in Phoenix, we have some amazing experiential bars. Actually, Grand has, Platform 18. It's like you're in a train car, right? And it's just total immersive experiences. There's another concept called Carry On, which literally feels like you're getting onto an airplane and going for that experience. But that is an experience. You are reaching a specific demographic, and it's amazing. And it's not a place that you're going to go to every Thursday night, happy hour with your friends, but you're going to pay for that experience when you do go. Another kind of piece of this too was just the evolution of the third space. Yeah. So the third space is, was
term coined by Ray Oldenburg. He was a sociologist. He wrote a book in the 1980s and just talked about the third space being a really important space for communities to thrive. If you look at the history of, just going back the history of America a little bit, the bar was, when we were kind of taking over and when cities started to be established with the Old West. And, one of the first things to go up was the church. The second thing to go up was a saloon. And then you had people building around that. And the saloon did act as like the community hub. But today, that space has really changed. That space could be, there's an explosion of different cafes. There is the bookstore. There is this online community space. I mean, there are people in their 20s and 30s that come home from work and they are online, and that is their community. So I think that the bar is never going to go away, but I think we also have to be really realistic of may not be necessarily the place to go. It's an option, but it's not necessarily defined as being the third space. That people have a lot more options nowadays.
Now, I am curious, do you feel like that is just because of the increase in options, or is the whole trend of people drinking less kind of putting a little pressure on that too? And it might not be either or, it might be both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I do think that people are drinking less, like that's a fact. But I think you can do some creative things on your menu to appeal to those people that aren't drinking, or appeal to a lot of different trends, as well. I don't think that I don't think the bar is disappearing because people are drinking less. I just think people have more options. But I do think that you need to appeal to, I love this movement of non-alcoholic spirits and non-alcoholic drinks. I think one thing that we're going to start seeing more of is functionality in that, functional beverages and giving people something more than just alcohol. So I'm not saying to go put protein in your espresso martini, but there are a lot of options that people...
Yes.
Yeah. But there are a lot of functional options. Like caffeine is huge. Caffeine is really big. Yeah. And I see caffeine popping up and becoming in more and more beverages, not just your Red Bulls, but in clean energy and L-theanine and lots of different ways.
All those buzzwords that actually do give you a little buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting time. I did, before we finish here, I did want to ask you, because you've been writing a lot about competitions, if we could go into competitions, kind of how you think of them, how to throw a good one, what not to do, because you've got a pretty good list there.
Yeah. I wrote this 2-piece article, one, and just because I've been involved with a lot of competitions over the last 20 years, some food and beverage competitions, some global competitions, local competitions, and I've just seen a lot of mistakes, both on how they're run as well as competing in them. So the first article was how to run a successful competition. So one of, a lot of the mistakes that I see are just not fully thinking it through from A to B, and also having a disconnect of what bartenders value. True story. I was working with this company once, or they wanted to work with me, and they wanted to kind of put together this competition, and we were going back and forth, and the PR person forwarded me this email, and I read through the thread, and at the very end, the CEO was on this thread and said, just, throw the bartender a couple of, we'll put them on social media, and they'll be dying to work for us because, every bartender just wants media and that's what they're motivated by. And I'm like, okay, that's not necessarily the case. So there was just this assumption that, every bartender is just motivated by wanting PR. And I think that's something you have to be really careful about. But so anyway, I wanted to kind of outline some ideas of what to do and what not to do in running a competition. So it's understanding what's worth it to a bartender and having a really good value proposition and what the prize is. Really respecting and understanding how much time and effort they put into it and potentially compensating them for that. So even giving them a little gift card to go pick up ingredients, wildly helpful. Also the judging process. Sometimes a lot of thought is not gone into who's judging. Sometimes they just pick judges at the last minute. And it is, I gave this one example of a competition that I saw where a judge was the owner of a bar. One of his bartenders was competing, and that bartender was also his niece, and that bartender
conflict.
won.
Yes.
Obviously some conflicts. And
no, that can work if it's completely blind. If there's a system where it's like only identified by letters, that sort of thing. Like, wow, I picked you. I didn't even know. Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully.
Right.
Yes.
But that has to come with a lot of transparency, and if and it also undermines perhaps that win. Maybe that person would have won regardless. You know what I mean? And it undermines their win because everybody's questioning the integrity. So integrity is really important. Also understanding kind of the steps you need to do on site. A lot of people are like, oh, we just get bartenders there and we'll figure it out. But you don't lose, you lose a lot of credibility when it's not organized or well run.
That is every husband's last resort. We'll just figure it out. It's going to be fine. It doesn't work in a marriage. It doesn't work for a competition. It just never works.
Yeah. And so on the flip side of that, check out the article in Substack. If you're thinking about running in competition, I think they can be a great way for brands to get their products in bartenders' hands and using it. But I also think, one big assumption too that brands make is, if we do this competition and a bartender uses it, it's going to get menu placement and the orders are going to pour in. Where I think competitions are more about building relationships. It's a starting point. It's not the end point.
Yeah. Perfect. Because you never even know in the menu cycle where you are. So, that one Bacardi drink you make for this competition, then like 5 months later, I don't know. Yeah. If I wanted to enter a competition, do you have any good advice for someone listening? Like, I'm new to bartending. I've been reading. I've been trying to learn a little bit about mixology, but I'm nervous. Maybe it's my first competition. What would you say to them?
I look at competitions as practice. Go in and try to compete in as many competitions as you can. Some are going to be bad. Some are going to be good. But look at it as practice. You're gonna lose, and that's okay. You actually learn more from your failures than you do your wins. So go in it with that mindset is like, this is training. And what you're going to get out of it, for the sake of sounding a little cliche, is you get so much more out of the process than you do the win. You meet people. You learn what that's like in that kind of environment. You learn what it's like to work under pressure in front of judges, what they're looking for, what to do, what not to do, building in contingency plans. And these are all like kind of big life lessons as well. So I'm a huge fan of competing, whether they're good or bad, because you learn something. Yeah, I think first and foremost, compete in anything and everything that you do because of the journey. More practical advice from competing in that is, my number one rule is read the rules.
You'd be surprised how many people do not read the rules. Yes.
Exactly. It's still shocking to me because I think many bartenders will assume that the rules are the same from competition to competition and kind of may skim through it and just get the gist, not fully understanding that they're different. And if you submit an entry and you're off by a quarter of an ounce because the competition says you can only use this much of an ingredient, and you've used more than that or less than that, it's an automatic disqualification. They're not going to come back to you and say, hey, can you change that so you can qualify? You're just disqualified. So read the rules, read the rules, read the rules.
Yeah. How many ingredients does the garnish have to be edible? Like everything, and it goes on and on and on. And do you have to use certain brands? And
Yes. All of those. Another important tip I would say is often they ask you what your inspiration is. And this is something that a lot of bartenders, I read one entry once that just said, I said, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your inspiration was. And they literally wrote, Google me. It's a pretty bold choice. But
yeah, it was Jeffrey Morgenthaler, wasn't it? No.
Yeah. But this is your opportunity to show the judges who you are. It is your opportunity to incorporate some storytelling, to really give color to your entry. Another quick tip too about AI. I also have seen a lot of AI entries, and that is something that I can spot a mile away because it says kind of all the right things. It's like a nice sentence structure. It is a lot of beautiful language put together, but yet it says absolutely nothing. Like there's no specificity in the entry. And you see that a lot. So we can spot it. And I'm not saying not to use AI. I think people who have difficulty in communication, I think it could be good with structuring, but the voice has to be yours.
Sure.
So, yeah. So, yeah, use storytelling and use examples from your own personal experience and inspiration to really paint the picture of who you are. So it's a great, great opportunity to do that. So, yeah, so that's one of my strong tips. Also, practice. I can't say that one enough. You have to practice. Some bartenders feel that because they work really busy shifts and in busy restaurants, that is practice. I know how to make drinks quickly, but that is a great skill to have, but that is not a competition skill. You need to be able to compete under pressure in front of judges, in front of a specific time period. So I recommend practicing in other bars, because the bar that the competition is going to be in is likely a very different bar than what you're used to. Even practice with different tools. While you're usually allowed to bring your own tools, you never know when you're going to lose that weighted tin that you don't have and be given another one, and you're using it for the first time, at go time.
Yeah.
So practice using other tins. Yeah.
Just on that point, I would add, because I have examples of doing this well and poorly, practice as close to the conditions as you can. And so I'm saying that because, post-COVID, I entered a competition and it was remote. It was my first remote one where I was filmed making a cocktail. And I practiced making the cocktail behind the bar, but not in the room with the camera and the light on me like I would need. And I was surprisingly nervous, even though I was just recording myself in a room, just like something about being, and you're live and like someone's watching you and you're talking to them about the cocktail. It's a different dynamics. Like if I'd even just like thought about that and practiced with that, I would have done a lot better, I think. And then I did it well in another way where we did different bars, kind of like you said. And it was when we were practicing for Arizona Cocktail Week. And so we actually brought people to watch us, and they would randomly choose the ingredients. And so it was truly kind of like the last slinger standing, where it's just you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And that went well. I ended up winning that one,
Yes.
But we practiced at all these different bars and did all this crazy stuff, and like you're just running around. It's like, I think this drink would need Fernet. Where's Fernet in this bar? Like, but yeah, it does work. But you've got to think about how close can you get to the actual competition.
Yeah. And often when you go in a competition, they allow you to put things wherever you want it. Even though it's a different bar space, they say, they might give you 5 minutes to kind of move things around. So I recommend setting up the bar that you want it, right? Hey, I want my jiggers here. I want my bar spoon here. I want my syrup here. I want my alcohol here, and taking a picture of it. So when you get to the competition and they give you that 5 minutes, pull that picture out, because again, when you've got 5 minutes, you're about to go on, you can kind of get a little scattered.
But you're like, ooh, yeah.
Your hand shaking, right. But if you have a picture and you're like, okay, I can just kind of go through this one by one, or I can go through this checklist one by one, that's something that's going to give you a little bit more confidence. And when you do practice, you're just like bartending, you're building muscle memory, right? And so you want to be able to be so comfortable that you're looking at the judges and you are grabbing it, and you've done this. People who have practiced, it is so obvious because they are just very fluid in their movements. There's not a chaos of where's this. They know where everything is. It's
you
the same
can't
thing
fake comfort. Either you have it or you don't.
Can't. There's a great bartender, Adam George Fournier. He won world class. And he said, I love his practice method, that he practices to a song, because he knows that when it reaches a certain point in this song, and often you can bring a song to the competition, and he knows that when he reaches a certain point in this song, that he needs to be at this certain point when making the cocktails. So when he has it kind of playing in the background,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when it's playing in the background, if he's like talking to a judge or getting in, it's that point in the song, he's like, oh gosh, I need to be at this spot. He can kind of speed up for a little bit. So it's just a great cadence to make sure you're kind of hitting those rhythm points, and you know where you need to be at a certain point. So practice, cool. Incredibly important.
Yeah. My last one I would add, and it's to young Andrew, 22. Do the shots of tequila after the competition. Just wait. There's going to be plenty of time. You're going to have fun later.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I know most people will do maybe like one shot before, but just like be chill to young Andrew, be chill. Yes.
Yeah. Be a professional, I think.
Yeah. You're on stage.
You're on stage, you're in front of people, you're going to meet some great judges, you're going to meet some brands. And again, this is all for the journey. So make sure you're being a professional the whole way through. So even things like the way that you dress, can make an impact on people. So it tells people how seriously you're taking this competition. Think about the way you dress. Think about the words that you're using and the things that you say. Don't ever slam other brands. Always and really understand the brand sponsor that is part of the competition. They're paying for it. Another mistake I sometimes see competitors make is that they don't have a lot of brand knowledge, or they don't share their brand knowledge. And when I've talked to competitors afterwards, they've said, well, I assume the judges know about that brand. I'm like, well, of course we do, but we want to know how much you know. It's so pretend like we know nothing. And I want to see that you understand the brand and how that's worked into the inspiration and the creation of your drink.
And they're paying the bills, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I do you want to ask, just because I had a big list of different things that we could talk about today, is there anything that we haven't talked about that perhaps you wish we would? Anything we miss?
I think, for me personally, I'm really embracing kind of creativity in a different way. And I do think creativity is incredibly important for growth and development and mental health. But I think sometimes creativity could be a part of, especially if you're a mixologist and you can say, well, I create creative drinks. And that is creativity. But I think we also need to find something else as well. And I think really being able to get in touch with, I think creativity is the most authentic form of human expression, whether it is through your words, through prose, through painting, through sculpture, architecture, art, that I think is really important to embrace authentic creativity in who you are. And that doesn't necessarily mean creativity in drinks. I see a lot of bartenders coming up the ranks, and it just seems to be like their life, where they're getting more and more into the creative aspects. And that can be a form of self-expression. But, one question you have to ask yourself is that if there was nobody here else on the planet, would you still be doing that thing? Mm. And
bartending would be very boring if that was.
Yeah. Would you still have an interest in making creative drinks? I mean, maybe, but I think it's just really important to explore creativity in other avenues.
And you're doing that in a lot of avenues. I know you just got done doing, was it the Dutch Bros? Are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. No,
Cool.
And I think that was that was a consulting role that I did. And I was helping them with some upstream innovation. And I think, they're an interesting case study to look at, very different from bars, obviously. However, I think could be a good thing for bars to take a page out of, and that they're not about creating a drink that has they're not about serving the best coffee in the world. They're not about serving the most well-crafted drink in the world. But man, the thing that they do have is culture. They've tied in. They know how to reach the culture of their audience. And that's also a great example of another third space for Gen Z.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people go and they wait in line for 20 minutes for an iced energy beverage.
Yeah. Now, as I think about it too, as I think about it, that is probably more work than creativity. You said you were so enlivened by it that I thought, oh, maybe that's one of those too.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I've gotten into drawing and painting and maybe kind of incorporating that into my work, but I also just do it for me too. So you have to find some hobbies and other ways and to express yourself. So I just see, it's such a big part of mental health. And I especially look, what's happening in AI, and how that is continuing to evolve. And I think there's going to be a time in the future when shitty art is going to be awesome. People that are just creating something that is really real. It's not this, it's this perfectly imperfect thing, but came from a person that created it versus something that is more performative and something that was generated by a bot.
Yeah. No, say what you will about my emails, good or bad. You can tell I wrote them because, they've got my voice. Again, good or bad, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I think AI can be a great tool. It's just
it's about how you use it.
Your voice,
Yeah. I mean, the robots are coming for all of our jobs, but maybe not hospitality. That's going to be a while before they crack that one. That is very in-person, very non-data driven. Maybe providing for the food, providing for the structure, but it's going to be a while before I think people would be okay with taking an order from a robot taking your order. Yeah. Although McDonald's proved that kiosks work, so who knows?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it continues to evolve. But I think hospitality might be, to your point, a hard one to crack for AI.
Yes, the downside is if it takes everyone else's jobs, it's going to be really hard to get a hospitality job. But that's sort of the future. We're all fighting for just hospitality jobs. Kim, if someone was listening to this and loved what they heard about you, your work, and everything like that, where could they go online to find out more about you?
I would go visit my Substack page. It's just under my name, Kim Haasarud. Yeah, I would look for some more articles there. Or on my LinkedIn profile, too. That's kind of where I do most of my stuff. I am kind of in the process of putting another website up, which will have more information. But I've kind of taken a step back from liquid architecture just because it is, over the course of the last couple of decades, while mixology was really popular, I've kind of gotten known for doing drink development, and now I do so much more than that. So working on something that's a little bit more expansive.
Yes. Well, it is a good thing that your experience and expertise has surpassed even what you had for it. You're growing and growing beyond liquid architecture. It'll just be architecture next. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you for making a little bit of time in your morning to come and talk to us. It was a pleasure to catch up after, I think, 10 years. So.
Yeah, it has been 10 years. How are you liking Omaha?
Omaha is sick, except for the weather occasionally.
Okay.
Great city, great place to move. We actually moved my wife's parents up here too, so they're a little closer. We could look after them and hang out with them. Great zoo. Great food, but my God, -10 and blizzards, those are things that happen. And if you look at a map of Omaha, you look at a map of the U.S. with Nebraska, it is literally right in the center. It is the most continental of the continental climates. So,
God.
Yeah.
And you get all of the extreme weather.
Tornadoes
Yeah. I went to KU for a year and I took a meteorology class. I really wanted to do like the storm chasers class. But, they're saying like that area right in the Midwest, I mean, you're getting the north fronts, the south, you're getting weather from everywhere, top, bottom, east, west. And so it is just really the most turbulent. Yeah.
But even with that, I've lived in Texas, I've lived in Oklahoma, New Mexico. I've seen cities that are incapable of dealing with snow just because it infrequently falls. And here they are capable. There will be a blizzard and I will go to work the next day because they plow the streets, they salt it, they sand it, it doesn't matter what happens. The next day we are good to go. So that's a positive side. My car is covered in salt, but we can go to work. And all my shoes are ruined, but again, we can go to work. So it is what it is.
How do you like the overall community in Omaha? Like the arts and the civics and
I have seen less of the art scene. There's one museum here called Jocelyn. We went, me and my wife, to go check it out. It was okay. It was free, which was really cool. The music and symphony and the shows they get in at the Orpheum Theater are awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had some really great experiences there. Part of that is a couple of people I work with are really into that scene. And so we kind of have been going whenever they tell us to go. And that's a pretty good experience so far. Moulin Rouge, when it came through, was awesome. Yeah, they did a really good job with that. And then other than that, mostly what we do is go explore restaurants, different food and drinks throughout town. So
yeah. Awesome.
Thank you for listening. That is today's episode. Now, if you have not taken a moment to check out our website, please do. It's servesyouRightPod.com. We have past episodes and all sorts of other things there. If you want to get in touch with me, that's the place to do it. I do appreciate that you've given me your most valuable asset, your time and attention. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned. We have some really cool guests coming up. I would hate it if you missed it. Cheers.